the author of several books, including exposés and excess. And we're so thrilled you're with us today. Your new book is out, and it is called What Would Mrs. Astor Do? And it is such a pleasure. So let's talk about Mrs. Astor and who she was, and what are we missing today, as most people listening to this may not know who Mrs. Astor was.
Frankie, good morning and good to talk to you. And I too heard from my mother, who do you think you are, Mrs.
Astor?
So it took a while. And we could say she was the queen of New York society, and all America followed her lead. It was about how you conduct yourself, how you behave at the best, your manners, your speaking voice, how you should be with other people, how you should be at a ball or on the street or at a restaurant. And let's remember that was a time of many, many utensils at the table. What was the fish fork? What was the cheese knife? Mrs. Astor knew, and if you wanted to be a respectable person in America in the late 1800s, you better know too. And she was the one to set the pace and teach you.
It's so fascinating. Oh. Yes. So, boy, Mark Twain would have a field day today, wouldn't he?
He would indeed. And in fact, Mark Twain and Mrs. Astor perhaps were at the same place in the Palm Court in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, perhaps along a corridor that connected the Waldorf and the Astoria, two hotels, and that corridor was called Peacock Alley. It was a version of what today we would think of as the red carpet. So in my book, I needed to, of course, have photographs and some drawings and illustrations.
Gorgeous,
and there is Peacock Alley. And there were balls there, fancy balls, dress balls. There was not necessarily enough room in one's private mansion ballroom, so one booked a hotel, such as the Waldorf Astoria. The guest list was exclusive. Crowds stood out on the sidewalk to see who came in, what did the ladies wear, what were their jewels, and of course, the reporters, the news media, the social media of the day was the press. You know this.
Yes.
And Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst competing with their New York newspapers, and their reporters were outside scribbling away. The next day, all New York and all America knew who had attended and what they wore and how elegant they were. Oh, what a day that was.
Yeah, you know, that Waldorf, I was actually, last year when I was in London, my friend booked the rooms at the Waldorf, and oh my gosh, it was just like going back in time. So elegant, the courtyards, the everything, just, it's so hard to,
level,
a totally different level, a totally different level.
The decor, so elaborate, so incredibly, in fact today, maybe some of your audience have visited Newport, Rhode Island. Others might. That's where the so-called cottages, which are really the mansions of Mrs. Astor's era, that's where those palatial summer homes are, and they've been preserved, and they are open to the public. So, researching my Mrs. Astor book, What Would Mrs. Astor Do? I, of course, went to Newport, toured those mansions again. I'd seen them, years past, but this was very different. This was a work trip. I had to get it right. Talk about those mansions. Talk about Mrs. Astor in Newport. 6 weeks in the summertime, and you better be there if you were in the social elite.